Welcome to Azure User Group Sweden and happy Saturday. Now, today is a little bit special day here because Jonah is out traveling, so she is in the backstage, and we will see, maybe she will make a surprise appearance here, who knows. But my name is Håkan Silvernagel, and I will be your host here for today. And before we start here, I will just cover some of our code of conduct here for our user group. So for our code of conduct, you should be nice and friendly. You need to listen with purpose and be thoughtful and be respectful to others. You should seek to understand and not to criticize, and be curious and open to share ideas. And be inclusive in your comments or questions. And if you want to read our whole code of conduct, you can find it on our GitHub link here. And you can also connect here on Meetup to stay updated on our upcoming sessions. We're always looking out here for new sessions. So if you want to speak, you can register on this QR code to get to our call for speakers. And it doesn't matter if you are already an established speaker or maybe you have never spoken before. Me and Jonah will be able to mentor you and help you coming up with your first presentation. And after our session, we would like to invite you together with our speaker on something we called fika, which is basically a small informal meeting where you can discuss the topics of today with me and Jonah and with our speaker. So we will post this link later on in the session, but this is the QR code for that. So with that said, I would like to welcome here on stage our speaker for today, which is Tore Nestenius.
Thanks, Håkan. Always nice to be presented to user groups. And this is my first time in Azure Sweden, so really feel honored to be here. So I'm looking forward to do my presentation here today and share my experience with the certification and how I did it and what was the outcome of my work to get this certification. It was hard work and it took a lot of time, but in the end it was worth it, and I will show what I did and what was the result, the outcome of this work getting this certification.
Yes, and I would just like to have a short formal introduction here to you, Tore. So Tore has more than 23 years of professional experience in software development and over a decade specializing in training developers. And he is a seasoned expert in the industry. And currently he operates as an independent consulting, delivering high-quality training, coaching, and consulting services. And areas of focus includes .NET, ASP.NET Core, software architecture, web security, and identity management. And he actually started his first website in 1996, and this evolved into Programmer's Heaven, which maybe some of us are familiar with. That was a web community that attracted a peak audience of over 750,000 visitors per month. And now we have Jonah with us.
I showed up myself. I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. I don't want to be absent. So hi, Tori. Welcome to our session today.
Thanks. Thanks.
So happy to host you even from the train. Thank you. Welcome. Yes.
Yeah, so then I think we just let Tore take the stage here. So
yes.
And if you have any questions, just post your questions on the way, and we will take them as they come. Good luck.
Sounds good.
That's great.
Thanks. So thanks, Håkan and Jonah. Thanks for inviting me to this meetup. So maybe I should start presenting myself. I am Tore Nestenius. I'm based in the south of Sweden, in Helsingborg. As my day job, I do coaching, training, and workshops for developers, including Azure, .NET, architecture, and in areas of security. I do blog frequently about .NET, Azure, and authentication security on my blog at nestenius.se. And I'm also the organizer of .NET Skåne, a local a local .NET user group in the south of Sweden. So if you're a .NET developer, feel free to join here as well. So this talk is based on my experience taking the AZ-204 certification that I took last year. So hopefully it's still the same. And I will share you my kind of how I got there and my tips and tricks for taking it and things that is good to know if you aspire to get certified. And because in the end, you want to get certified. And in my case, my goal was to get this diploma. I want to be certified in the Azure Developer, to have this certification. And, I made it eventually. And, but then, of course, the question is, why should I get certified and why did I do it? And for me, it was a lot about, sure, I've been using Azure for many years, but I really did not maybe understand everything. I did not understand diagnostic settings, exactly what happened under the hood. I was a bit unsure about a lot of things. And taking this certification allowed me to kind of solidify and really understand, what happens under the hood when I enable certain features and what a bit more about the general philosophy and, way of thinking when you develop for the cloud. So for me, it was a lot about getting the confidence that, sure, I mean, Azure is really, really big and you never will know everything, but it's all about getting the confidence that I can actually, with confidence, set up secure applications, develop for the cloud. I know about the deployment, Azure CLI, I know about identity, authentication, roles, and logging, and the different kind of features on troubleshooting and all of that. It's also to really kind of master the fundamentals of the cloud development, because it's a bit scary if you start developing for Azure, but you're not really sure what you're doing. It's really a bit scary. So I wanted to master it. And also I wanted to be relevant because today you touch the cloud more or less everywhere you go. There's always some cloud component. And for me, it was a bit, to be, up to date, to be relevant, and be able to develop applications with confidence in the cloud. And of course, it's always a good thing to have in general, to have on your CV, and that can also increase your job opportunities. Having a cloud skill is, of course, always good to have. So what certification do exist? Well, there are plenty of those, and Microsoft do have a poster for this that shows, and there's even more for So, I mean, you could study for certification all your life. There's always some certification left to do. But from my point of view, I'm a developer. I'm not a AI. I'm not a data mining guy. I'm a developer. So what's relevant for me? So for me, I think the relevant certification were like an AZ-900 to get an introduction to the cloud. There's the AZ-104 that is more for administration, networking, security, virtual machines. And then there's the developer one, the one I focused on, the AZ-204. That one is more focused on development and for developers. And if you want to continue after that, you can always look at the AZ-305, the Azure Solution Architect, or you can look for the Azure DevOps Engineering with the AZ-400. And to get the AZ-400, you need to either have the 104 or the 204 certification. But for me, my kind of goal was just to get the 204, because that is a good baseline to have confidence when developing for the cloud. But then, of course, the question is, how difficult are those certifications? And the AZ-900 is really easy. The AZ-104, that one is really, really hard. So that one you really need to study a lot for to achieve. And for me, I would like to take it, but it's time, and it would take some time, and I don't know if I have time for that right now. And it's a 2-4. Well, it was hard. I mean, there's a lot of things you need to master. The other ones are, I think, I would say equally hard, even though I haven't taken them. I would estimate them to be equally as hard as the 204. So what is else good to know when you want to get certified? The first is that they introduced for, I think it was last year or the year before, the open book exam. And what's that? Well, that means that during your certification, you actually have access to the full MS Learn documentation. So you can actually open it while taking the test. You can open the MS Learn and search it. However, there's a few limitations. You can search for anything you like, and that really, really helps. So being able to search efficiently and quickly is the key skill, because you're under stress when you're taking the test, and you can't spend too much time, reading documentation. You really have to be quick, able to search and find things. And the biggest annoyance is that you can't, even though if you search for and find a page, maybe a long page, you can't search with Control F inside a page. You have to browse it yourself and find the specific thing you're looking for. And the final warning is that it is a bit, unstable for me at least. It crashed during my exam, so I had to kind of, get help and restart the exam to get it working. So don't open and close it all the time. Just keep it open. Don't treat it as like something that is really, really unstable. Then it will work out, I think. But this one is, sure, it did help me because I could look up some questions in the documentation. So that is really good. Then, of course, how should I study for the certification? I could go to the MS Learn online and take the training material there, and it's really good. This covers all the steps, and you can do it on your own. There's exercises, there is kind of test questions and so on. So I think it's really good. The alternative is to take the Microsoft in-class training, because they do have a 5-day training class or training workshop that covers more or less the same thing as in the MS Learn online. And I think the key surprise to me is that the material in the training class is more or less identical to the content you find online. So even though sure the training material is PowerPoint, it's more nicer layout and similar, the phrasing and wording is almost the same. So that can be good to know. But of course, if you take it live, there's always the teacher you can ask questions to. So that would always be helpful. When you are studying, you can also get practice questions. And there are many options for that. You can go, there's some included in the MS Learn material. You can buy third party, and you can find, free of charge online. There's many providers of test questions for certifications. And I think the key warning here is that as the certification changes from time to time, some of those questions might be a bit outdated, or maybe not relevant, or really, really hard. So you need to kind of compare and try to find the one that you find is most trustworthy and have best questions. For me, I use the WizLabs, but do check them out and try them out, and be aware about the accuracy of the questions and answers. Another thing that is key when you actually are studying for the certification is the changelog, because Microsoft will tweak and change the content of the certification from time to time. So you need to go in there and verify that the things that you need to study for is actually on the exam. And you can also get some insight on the priority, how much of security and how much is messaging and how much is Cosmos DB, for example. And a big change for a few years ago was that they removed the virtual machines requirement in the certification for the AZ-204. So that really helped, one less thing to understand and master. So if you want to learn about virtual machines, then it's the AZ-204 that covers those areas. So I think that's a good change. And also, I mean, when you are studying, you are pretty alone. And I found that the Azure certification subreddit on Reddit is a really good place to hang out and to get some tips and tricks and hear what others say about getting certification. And as you see in these examples here, you can find, what other people think is hard and difficult. You can find, is it worth it? And the discussions about practice tests. And also, people share the failures, why did they fail or how did they fail and what should I, what do you need to study more on. So it's really interesting to read those stories about people failing, people passing the certification, and general questions on how to take the certification. So I really highly recommend that subreddit. But for me, at least, when you want to get a certification for Azure Cloud, I would always start with the AZ-900. That's a kind of fundamental beginner's certification. And I think it's a really good starting point because, yes, it is easy. It's not really that advanced, but it still gives you, first of all, it gives us some fundamental experience and knowledge about Azure in general. But it also, the more important thing is it gives you a way to start practicing how to study, and you will experience them as learn material. And also you you can get more familiar with exam itself. So when you later take another certification, then you know how it works, you know how the test is like, the process of from studying to passing the certification. So I would always say that you should take this one because it prepares you for the real exam. So I think that's a good thing. But if you know what to take the AZ-900 to start with, then I would always say that you should go for the MS Learn material online. It's a good, go through it, study it, practice it, and it's good. But I would also recommend taking the John Saville's online free YouTube AZ-900 class. This is really a good one. It's actually 65 videos and 9 hours long, free of charge. So, but do watch it. It's really good, and together with MS Learn, you will pass the certification. No doubt about that. So, but after you pass the AZ-900, you're a bit prepared, you're more mature, you understand how the process works. Now it's time for the big thing. So the AZ-204, the focus on the following thing: cloud application development. As a developer, how do I develop applications for the cloud, and how do I deploy, and what services are available for me? It's about containers, container registry, is container instances, and container apps, and you become more familiar with those. It's also about getting more familiar and more confident about using the Enter ID and creating users, you creating accounts and giving roles and assigning roles, and to ensure that you can secure your applications in a proper way. Because I think security is still one of the hardest problems with the cloud, and understanding how roles and user management and works is always key. And also it covers how to talk to and how the fundamental storage services like storage account, blob storage, Cosmos, and the queuing and event grid and all those kind of external storage services and other services like logging and other things, how they kind of interact with your applications. So where should you start the journey? Well, I would say that for me, I actually bought the Scott Duffy's Udemy training video series. and it's an 8-hour-long video class. I think it's really good, and it's a really popular one with good ratings and a lot of students taking that one. So I highly recommend it. And then, of course, together with that, you do the MS Learn material, go through that and understand all of those things. So those two were my key resources. And of course, you will always look for some other YouTube videos and similar to get specific details. But in general, those two resources is a good starting point when studying for the AZ-204. But is it enough to pass taking this video and doing MS Learn? And for me, it was not. So if you were to compare them, it's good to have this course takes you, so far. And MS Learn, I think, takes you more, takes you further away, or it gives you more kind of skills. But to actually pass the exam, you need to do more work on your own, doing other research, because I found that MS Learn was not really enough for me to pass the exam. I had to do more studying and more work to pass it. So, Håkan, do we have any questions so far that we should maybe address before we continue?
Yes, we actually have a question here from Deepo R, who says, what would you recommend learning through Udemy, Pluralsight, Coursera, YouTube, or MS Learn, since the syllabus changes from time to time?
Yes. So I would say that if you actually go, I think Scott Duffy's course on Udemy, he actually updates it pretty frequently. So if you look at the Udemy's webpage right now, it's the January 2025 edition. So I think he keeps his material pretty up to date on a frequent basis. So I would actually look for how fresh is the training material. But I also think that still the certification covers a lot of the really the fundamentals of blob storage and app services and Cosmos DB and the containers and similar. And those things don't change that often. So I think the changes today in the certification is more, the focus on what does it focus more or less on. I think it will always, cover, Azure Functions and blob storage and Cosmos and container deployment. So I think the fundamentals will always be the same. And of course, Azure Portal also changes all the time. New menus are added or new features are added. So I think it's impossible for any training material to be 100% up to date, I would say. Any other question?
No, not so far.
Okay, sounds good. So keep asking questions to Håkan, and I will try to address them as we go along. So let's look at how did I actually do the studying and the hard way. So, getting the certification, we need to master and understand quite a lot of keywords, buzzword, concepts, features, services. So it's really a lot of things. And what are our options here? Well, we could do the classic approach. We do the Scott Duffy, we do labs and experiments, and we do the MS Learn, and we do more labs and experiments, and you do a practice test, and then you iterate this until you pass. And of course, you will get your diploma. That's your paper or certification. That's good. And maybe you will have, as an end result, some study notes. And notes is of course good to have, but really, how often will you go back to those notes and read them again in the future? Maybe not so often. So basically, with the classic approach, you get the certification and you're happy. But, for me, I wanted to get more out of my study process, because just having a PDF, well, I spent a few months getting this PDF certification, of course, good, but I wanted to get more value out of my time spent on this certification. So how did I do it? Well, from my point of view, I have a philosophy for how I learn, and for me, I don't really understand something until I can explain it to someone else. If I can't teach you the concept, then I don't really understand it myself. So it's my kind of key mantra when I do teaching or learning new things. I really need to understand it so much or so well that I can explain it to someone else. So what did I do? Well, I did the Scott Duffy, I do MS Learn and the practice test and all of those things. But at the same time, I created content. So then, of course, the question is, what content did I create? And in my case, I wrote blog posts because when I studied for the certification, where there was something I struggled with that maybe I found to be really hard, or things that I want to share to someone else, because you will fail a lot. You will need to kind of have a pain. You need to have a tears, and you need to kind of be frustration with, with various features that you think should be so obvious that it should work, but it does not work. So you will need to struggle with it. And some of those struggles and some of the lessons learned. And I also think it's good to, when you're studying, to take a few key areas and go a little bit deeper, because like default Azure credentials, what does it actually do? So did I really deep dive into that part to really understand it? There was the kind of delegated SAS access token for blob storage, some specific feature, but I wanted to understand it, not just a theory. I wanted to actually try it out to understand how it works. So while I was studying, I've made a few blog posts. And the nice thing is that when I later did the test, some of the questions was kind of, I could answer them because I did those blog posts. That really helped, to solidify my knowledge by explaining it to someone else. I also did a few webinars, during my studies, sharing some of the findings in different user groups or on different kind of YouTube channels. It also helps me to solidify and set my skills. But so this is good. But my kind of biggest work was that I actually created PowerPoints. So in my kind of while I was studying, I did have in mind that I want to teach this topic, the Azure, in the future. So instead of just making notes in kind of OneNote or in some other kind of Word document, I actually, instead of making notes, I created PowerPoint. I created presentation material that I could use in a future training class. So for each topic in the MS Learn and in the certification, I created presentations trying to visually show how different things are related. How would I explain, for example, partitions in Cosmos DB to someone else? So I created some slide for that. So at the end, I actually created a 5-day training workshop, Azure for developers, as a result of this work. So that meant that all that the kind of all the time spent studying, I actually get some more value out of it. Blog posts, did some webinars. I'm speaking here today. I created a training workshop. So I got some more value out of my studying process. And of course, not everybody wants to make training material, but I still think blogging, presenting in Azure Sweden user group or meetups in general is a good way to, explain to others, because if you can explain the topics covered in the certification to others, then that will, of course, help you as well, because then you will understand it better yourself. But of course, I have one small problem, because, okay, I make training material, slides, but I also need to do exercises. And how would I do interesting, realistic, and interesting exercises for learning Azure? Because just doing Hello World, deploying that, well, it's a bit too easy, or maybe not so interesting. You need to learn Azure, you need to have something more, something else. So what did I do? Sure, I did it the hard way. So let's take one step back. So when we go to a planet Mars and explore it, we need to learn it. We don't know so much about it. We are kind of experimenting. We want to learn planet Mars. So what do we do to explore it? Well, we send different rovers, robots, satellites to Mars, doing experiments on site. And when we explore Azure, we need to treat it like Mars. It's an unknown, hostile kind of planet. It's kind of the cloud. So many features, so many buzzwords, so many concepts. It's a really scary place sometimes to get it to work. So as a beginner, it's kind of, oh my God, where should I even start? So what did I do? Well, I created my own Azure rover, in this case, and my own Azure robot that I can deploy to Azure to allow me to experiment, to explore, and make more interesting exercises. So basically, we can deploy this Azure tool to Azure as part of my training. And from that, I can actually do things. So this tools contains over 30 different kind of small tools and features that allows you to explore many of the different services in Azure: blob storage, app services, container apps, Redis, Android, API management, CDN, the Event Hub, Event Grid, logging, and App Insights, and all of those things. So this tool contains a lot of different things, allowing me to explore and show, and allowing the kind of student using it to explore and learn the different features. And so in my case, I created this as an open source project. It's all on GitHub. And because I don't use Bicep or ARM templates in this project, because AZ-204 doesn't cover or use Bicep. They only focus on the the Azure CLI. So I use the PowerShell scripts that is included to deploy it to Azure. So the nice thing here is that the same application, my Cloud Debugger, I can deploy to app services, Linux app services. I can deploy it as a container to the container registry, so I can learn that. And then I can deploy it as a Linux app service, container instance, or container apps. So by allowing me to deploy the same application to all of those 5 places, and you can also, if you want to, deploy it to Kubernetes, then you can compare things, you can talk between them, and you can do interesting kind of scenarios and use cases and exercises because of this. You can compare, what happens if I do it to app service compared to container apps. And so that was really good. And it also, as I did it as an open source, and because this is an open source project and it's open source on GitHub, it's a public repository, then I could enable all the security features that Azure provide free of charge to public repositories. So I could actually look at code scanning and secret scanning to get feedback and learn all of those things. I also involved Sonar Cloud in this project. So when each time I make a pull request, I send it to Sonar Cloud and it will give feedback. And I also use the Sonar Lint, that is a plugin to Visual Studio that can give you even more warnings based on the findings in Sonar Cloud to really ensure that I do have a high quality solution with a few warnings. So over time, this tool will actually scan my source code, find problems, find defects, and now we have one failure here. We can look at the overview and for the main branch, and I can see that I do have one kind of failure here. I have a security hotspot, and it gives me warnings about different things. This one is more like a general warning that if I use random, it's not supposed to be for password or some really secure things. So I can actually review that feature and say that, hey, it's fixed, it's safe, don't worry about that one. And so it gives me additional kind of feedback that I can review, I can fix it. It actually gives me, also solutions for how to solve it and some links to resources. So it's really a good way to get additional feedback and to allow me to better make clean code. And I think when you start using those tools, like I did last year, we have a lot of warnings, but then over time you fix those warnings and errors, and you want to go towards zero. Maybe not entirely zero, but you want to always be improving. So you want this curve to always be decreasing, because if it's increasing, then you have some problems, I would say. So I like this curve because it shows me that I'm on the right track. Maybe not fixing it all on at once, but over time I want to hit, zero issues. So that is a good thing. Sonar Cloud and Sonar good tools to have in your secure development practices. So let's look at the tool itself. So this tool, let me just open some folders here. So this tool, if I open the browser here, I can actually, in this case, I have actually deployed it to 5 different places. So now we can see in the URL up here where I have deployed it to. So I do have, container instance. There's a Linux app service. There's a Linux app service container. There's Windows app service, and there's also a container instance and container apps. So I have the same application deployed to 5 different places. And of course, what can I do? Well, for example, I can look at my identity. And we all, most of the time, use the default Azure credentials to get, access token to access services. But it's a bit hidden, a bit mysterious what actually default Azure credentials do. So what did I do? Well, I actually downloaded the source code to that library and had my own debugging hooks and added it to this Cloud Debugger. So now when I get an access token in, let's take the Linux app service, I get access token. I can actually see the details. Okay, I can see the access token that I did receive. I can look at a selected credential provider. So I can see that it uses the managed identity credentials to get the details. There's the MSI token endpoint that you will learn about when you study. You can get, all the kind of really low-level in charts, but it also gives a more sense of what happens, because the interesting thing is that when you use the default Azure credentials, what it actually do, it scans through different token credential providers and look for a valid credential. So it starts by looking for the environment. Do I have any environment variables with some credentials? No, doesn't find anything. So no, it tries a workload identity. I think that is Kubernetes. It then looks for the managed identity credential, and this time it did find a valid credential. So it uses that one to get access token. It also, if it would not find, it would try the Visual Studio credentials, Azure CLI credential, Azure PowerShell, Azure Developer CLI credentials. So I can actually see what happens internally. And I also do provide a fully detailed log of what is going on internally. And this is information you can't get normally. But using my tool and my kind of hooks into this library, I can extract that information, allowing the user to get some more insights into this tool. I can also, for example, look at, easy things like environment variables, because a lot of the time you need to explore the variables because you want to set things. You can see for example, the MSI secret, the MSI endpoint. There's another featuring things for various things. So this is a place to explore things. You can look at the app configuration, because my ASP.NET Core application has configuration, and you can see all the configuration. You can look at the configuration providers. Where does the configuration come from? So you can see that it's from the maybe environment variables. You have from the JSON app settings. You have a lot of different sources and different views to view your configuration. So you can explore and troubleshoot why is the configuration not working as expected. Another thing is pretty fun, I think, is to look at the scale out. Because when you scale out your application, it's sometimes a bit hard to know, does it really work? Does it really scale out? So in my case, I do call my instance in 4 different iframes. And if we do scale out, I want to see different instances being used and called throughout these different boxes. And we see the time is increasing here. I can zoom in a bit. We see the time increasing, so we know that it's actually reloading this frame over and over again. But if I were to go back to the bottom and look for my Linux app service, I go to this one, and now I want to scale out. So I could scale out manually. Let's say 6 instances. So now it will scale out my single instance to 6 parallel instances of my app service. And the big idea now is that we want this page to eventually start showing different colors. So it takes maybe a minute or so, then we will see more instances being introduced to the load balancer, and we should now very soon see that new instances coming in. And so while we wait, we see that we have different instances now, and I use a different color for each one, so we can actually verify. And we can also see that the instance age is 0 in this case, while it's 83 minutes in the old one. So we actually know that we have fresh deployments here. We can see the instances, and we can verify that scale out actually works. And we can actually, as a beginner, just see it in action, because I really think that is, otherwise it's a bit hard to really understand, does it really work? Because first when I tried it, it did not work, because when I did it, nothing happened. And I just did scale out, but in this case, I don't see anything. And that is because the browser, the Azure Load Balancer sets a cookie on your computer, and if you don't clear that cookie, it sets a cookie that makes that your browser will always go to the same instance every time. But if you clear that cookie, I will see a different instance, but all the instances will go to the same one because we're using the same cookie in this browser. So I do it one more time, clear the cookie, go to a different instance randomly, but now I'm stuck to the same instance. And this is due to a cookie being set by the Azure Load Balancer or something that makes my session sticky with that specific instance. And in the first example, it shows a clear cookie all the time. And that's why each time I ask for a box here, it goes to a different instance. And I think that is really interesting to just visualize how things behaves internally. Håkan, do you have any questions so far?
Yes, we have a couple of questions here.
Yes.
So the first question is from Julia Botnari. How much time did you take to prepare for AZ-204 certification?
I did not do it maybe full time, but it sure took me a few months, maybe part time to. First of all, I did all the building this tool because I wanted to study at the same time. I created my blog post and training materials, so it took quite some time. So I would say maybe 3-4 months part time. It was really a lot of work because so many features that you need to understand and play with and repeat and rehearse. And so next one.
Okay. So next one is from Deepu R. Is AZ-900 mandatory to take the AZ-204, or is it more like understanding the concept before attempting the AZ-204?
I don't need to take it, but as I said before, I think it's a good way to experience the certification process, the test itself, so you know the style, what kind of question layout, and what kind of how does it feel like to take a certification? Because I would be a bit more scared if I had to go and take the AZ-204 directly, never taken a certification. I don't know what the tooling looks like, the experience. So I think it's more for getting the experience, both for how to study. And I'm sure I did learn a few things while studying that is not covered in the AZ-204. So I think it's good to take. Sure, it takes a few days to study, but I think it's worth it to be better prepared for the real certifications.
Okay. Then we have a comment here. One moment. So this is from Taco Susuyama. It was very helpful to learn about Sonar Cloud. Thank you so much, Tore.
I can say a few things about Sonar Cloud. So Sonar Cloud is a cloud-based service that you just connect to GitHub, and it will can scan your code on a regular basis. So if I go to the and you will always get the links to those things later on. But if I were to go to the my Cloud Debugger and I will look at the maybe past pull requests, you will see that Sonar Cloud is involved here. It's a quality gateway added, so it needs to pass Sonar Cloud to be able to actually be allowed to be accepted. So that's a good thing. But Sonar Cloud is basically actually a hosted version of Sonar Cube. So Sonar Cube is an open source service you can actually deploy locally inside the organization and run directly against it locally. Sonar Cloud is more convenient because it's cloud hosted and managed for you, but you can also download it and run it for free locally. And then there's always a commercial edition, an enterprise, and it also supports things like 20 or 30 different languages. So it's not just .NET; it handles quite a lot of languages. So that's going to be good to know. And Sonar Lint is a plugin for Visual Studio that you can use to and paste the link in the chat to Sonar Lint that you can add to your IDE and get more feedback from SonarCube and additional warnings when you develop. And it does cover quite a lot of languages and also different IDEs. So it's a good, I think, a plugin to help you get a real-time feedback. So you don't need to go back and wait for the quality check to be done. You can always, in Visual Studio, get more, feedback in real time. I think that's good. Any other question?
Yes, then we also have another question here from Deepu R, who says, how much should we practice the concept in the Azure portal more practically in order to pass the exam?
I would say you need to master the portal, the things that is covered in certification and is covered in MS Learn. And also you need to have experience doing the AZ and Azure CLI commands, because you need to be able to to understand how to write PowerShell. I mean, how to use the AZ command lines. And in my case, those deploy scripts are included in my open source project. But being able to understand and write and consume and troubleshoot, and there will be questions on those. What command should I use here? What flag should I set? And of course, then you can, due to it, because it's an open book exam, you can search MS Learn for those kind of flags or settings or commands to use. So for me, I took a lot of pride in trying to be more familiar with the command line and the AZ commands. Then there's also a separate set of PowerShell commands, but I think the certification focuses on the AZ CLI commands and not the PowerShell command, because that's a totally different set of commands. And it does not also cover ARM templates in that extent or bicep. So AZ CLI and the Azure portal, I would say you need to understand and master. Any other question?
Okay. Yes, we have a question here from Takos Susuyama, who says, do you think GitHub certification is as important as Azure certification?
I think there are many different GitHub certifications, there are GitHub Actions ones and Git in general. And of course, I think maybe if you're maybe in the DevOps space, you want to take the Azure DevOps, and then of course getting more. I think there's some GitHub Action certification. It's good to have, and of course understanding Git is key as well. Because not understanding that, I think you need to understand it. It's important today to. But I don't think you need a specific certification in GitHub, unless you really want to go the DevOps route and take the AZ-400.
And we also have a question here. Deepu R expands on his question. Is the Azure free account enough for AZ-204?
Yes, I think it's enough to have a free account. You will not. Of course, it's always a matter of deleting the things at the end of the day, so it does not, take money overnight when you're not using it. And in my case, I really like so if I look at I really like to have a PowerShell script that deletes entire resource groups and also maybe deletes the identity. So at the end of the day, I run this script, delete everything in the cloud to ensure that I don't have anything but cost money when I'm not using it. So I think you should be doing this all the time, because you need to be a cost-effective developer in general. You should always clear up your mess, when at the end of the day, and then restart the day after. So that meant that my scripts that I do have here for deploying and building those things, I run them every day I was studying. So, and of course they break and they crash and you improve them. So that kind of repetition of always deleting and then redeploying every time, that also makes that you get confidence in my scripting ability, that my scripts are trustworthy. And in my case, I also do have one script that deploys to all 5 places. So I can, with one script, deploy to all those 5 places, including the container registry here. So that means that I can easily, I don't need to go into the portal and manually deploy it. I want that to be automated as much as possible. And the Azure certification, AZ-204, do cover this in some extent. So I would say that as a modern developer, you need to be able to automate things, and doing scripting and doing it this way is a good practice in general, regardless of certification or not.
Okay. And then we have a comment here from Taku Susuyama, who says, thank you for your detailed answers to many questions.
Thanks. And we can do another example here. I do have, I just want to show you another picture here first. So with my Cloud Debugger, I can create complicated setups. So let's see if this works. So I could have a blob storage. I can, in my tool, create a blob and store it here. And then I can add an event grid notification. So I want event grid to call a separate webhook endpoint to notify me that a new blob has been created in blob storage. And of course, setting this up yourself, I mean, that takes some time. And sure, I did struggle a bit to get the event hook to work because there's some big event hook validation and other things. But so let's see if this works in practice. So in my case, I do have my AZ-204 correct instance. I think this one, yes. So I can actually open a new browser here just to make sure what do. So I do have two different debugger windows open. I can go to my blob storage tool, and here I do have tools both access tiers, operations, blob versioning. But in this time, I want to access the blob storage. And to do that, you can do that in different ways. And for me, I'm using let's just get the keys and names. So I provide the name of my storage account, provide the name of my storage container, and I also provide my access token in this case, access key. So this one actually supports access keys, managed identity, or SAS tokens. So I can use all of those tokens and explore the access to my blob storage. I can then list the blobs in that container. It's empty right now. So I can create Azure Skåne blob. I can say that, Azure Sweden it is, not Skåne. Sweden, and I say Azure, so Azure works like that. Save. So I actually created a blob storage. So I can actually see that it's created in blob storage. And of course, I can also always go to the portal and go into the storage account to verify that it is there. So I go to my blob storage and I look at my containers. I have my Cloud Debugger container here. I can see that I do have an Azure Sweden blob here, and I can look at that blob and I can see the content, Azure works, I can see the versions and snapshots and, all of those things. So we do have a blob now, but now I wanted to verify that I was notified through the event grid and a webhook that a blob was created. So I do have in this tool 4 different webhooks implemented. So I can view the log here, and I don't see anything here. So that's too bad. Let's see what happens. So the idea is that it should actually send something here if it were to work. But of course, then there's always kind of this one should actually work, but it's a bit odd. I can go to the portal and we can look at the storage account, and we should see that I do have an event webhook set up here, and it has, made one event here, and we can look at that event. We're not going to look at the details here, but just looking for the webhook here, Linux as websites. Yeah, it should be that one. I can just copy it. So it should be to that one. Bit odd that it's not showing here. But another thing that is really nice is that I have a request log. I can actually see and log every incoming request to this Cloud Debugger application. So I can actually see here all the requests. So I can actually clear this log, and I can make another blob to see, do I actually get any request at all sent to me? So I can make third one, and then I can go back to this request log tool to see that now it does not send the webhook to this instance. So there's maybe some other things going on here, but I don't think I can find the problem right now. But in theory, I should be able to see, because I do see in the logs here that it has, sent an event hook, delivered things, but for some reason it does not really work. But that is also a good exercise, because this tool do have places for allowing me to debug things. And another thing that is pretty interesting is I can view the current request. So when I send a request to Azure from my browser, for example, in this case, I can see all the specific request headers that Azure adds to the request, like all those kind of internal tracking or tracing things. There's various forward headers that is added by the load balancer in Azure. So you can actually see all of those internal things. You see the raw request. So you can actually explore things. What does the Azure load balancer add to my request, for example? That is also useful. You can also look for the blob. So if you go to the blob access tiers, let's see if this actually works. I can enter my storage account and container name. I can create 5 sample blobs in my storage account. And now I can list those 5 blobs. And in the storage account, there are actually 5 different storage tiers. So when you create a blob, you can choose in what tier do you want to store it in. And that depends, that affects the cost of storing and also the access time. And do you want to store it for a long time or just short time? Do you want to, maybe archiving it? So you can actually see that I have created now 5 different blobs in 5 different tiers, and I can change the in one tier. I can now change it to, maybe I want to cool tier, and maybe I want to have one in the cold tier. So I can actually, in this tool, see that I do have one in the cool tier, I have one in the cold tier, and that affects the cost of storing blobs in blob storage. I can even do an archive of a blob storage, and that takes your blob really offline, and it takes up to 15 hours to get it back. So you can actually troubleshoot and make good exercises around storage tiers for blobs. And also I do have for most tools, I do have a documentation link at the bottom. So in the wiki on GitHub, there's a documentation for each tool showing you how it works and the key things you need to know about each tool. So I think, to wrap this up, I think that, do feel free to explore this open source project, and also feel free to contribute, create issues or pull requests, report bugs, use it. It's a good way to learn it. Teach other developers. So while you're studying for the certification, help others. I think that helped me a lot to making blog posts or teach others, and also get the certification. I think it's worth it because you will learn so many new things getting certified, and you can then afterwards be more confident when working with Azure Cloud. And also have fun, of course. Doing stuff, building things is always equally important. So the link to the presentation and the Cloud Debugger can be found here. And I'm sure also Håkan will post those links in the chat. And go to my blog and check out my blog post. And if you're curious about my training and professional services, feel free to go to my company website at TN Data. So Håkan, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have a couple of more questions here.
Yes.
Or actually, we have some comments. So first, a comment from a common community friend here, Said Dahl, who says, another great session for my friend. Amazing job, Azure User Group Sweden.
Thanks, AZ.
And then we also have a comment here from Shadow09 who says it was a great job.
Thanks. I placed the link to the GitHub in the chat as well.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Let me do post that. No, not so far.
Okay.
So let's see here. We got a comment here from Deepu R, who said, thanks Tore and organizer for setting up a valuable session and answers.
Thanks. Are you still here?
Yes. Yeah, sure. And let me just post this last link here to the GitHub. Yeah, so now I think you have
links
all
in
the
the
links
chat, so I already added it to the chat, so you don't have to do it.
That's good. So so then then we thank you, Tore, for a very, very great session. I think gave very good, valuable material here for our audience.
Thanks. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me afterwards on my email. You find my contact details in the blog, or just Google for my name and connect on LinkedIn if you want to.
And we're also inviting you and our audience here for a short digital fika. So you can go to that bit.ly link. Let me post it also here on the in the comments. So it is this one. So you can go to bit.ly AZ Sweden -fika 2025. And you can also find that link here in the comments. And you can talk to me and Tore and perhaps Jonah here about any questions you have regarding certifications and AZ-204 here in particular. So yeah, so with that said, I want to thank you once again, Tore.
Thanks. Nice to be here, and I had fun.
I want to wish everyone a nice Saturday and keep a check on our meetup page to see when our next session will be scheduled. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye. So that went well. So let's go to